Hi. So in today's episode, we'll continue our permission system. In the last one, we finished configuring our roles. However, we still have to do some work on the permissions themselves. So let's get started. All right, so this package by default ships with has permission to method. And we just want to extend that method. So firstly, let's just override has permission to. And we just need to import the, has permission to as base has permission to. So we'll just call the base method here. And here we would accept our permission list. So if it has permission to the value, then we are basically good. We also need to import grant, how is it called? Give permission to as base give permission to, and revoke permission to as base revoke permission to, and we can just override them. Wait, give permission to, right? Give permission to. Here we'll take our permission list and we'll return this base give permission to. For some reason, PHP Storm is not auto-completing that, so that's fine. We'll just type it out by hand. It will return self. And we have to do the same with revoke permission to, which will basically return the same thing. Now we need to add this validation here that we added, for roles, but we need to add one for the permission. So we'll add validate permission. Here we'll accept permission list, permission. And now we will probably use the same method. Permission is not applicable to this model. And now we can just copy basically this thing here to our permission list. And this would be called user permissions, and this would be called team permissions. So I think we agreed that Zapier Access would be a team permission, and the rest would be on the user level. So this should do the trick. So now we just need to validate the permission on each and every one of these. And this should work. So now let's test this out. So let's take the first user and let's see what permissions that he has. And we will just remove them all. Okay. So now we should be able to give permission to permission list discussion create, and that permission was added successfully. And if we try to give him access to, Zapier access, it will throw an exception. So that's exactly what we want. Now let's look at the roles that our user has. So they have a team owner and admin roles. Let me just sync them to an empty array. And now let's see the roles. And now what we can do is we can, give him the role. I'll just find this method. It's assign role. And here we can do, role list team owner. Okay, so now this plugin implements inheritance. So this means that if a role has a permission and a user has that role, they will have this permission, which makes sense. And this creates a great composable API or like granular permission system that you can use. There is one problem though, and I will show you what the problem is in a second. So we'll take that role. We'll just take a first role. DB table roles first. I think it was second one. Yeah, team owner. Let me just find how this model was called, because this will be required. So yeah, now we can find our second role and give it permission to discussions create. It was discussion create, right? Yeah. So now our first user, by inheritance, will have permission to discussion create. So we can see that it returns true. The problem begins if, if you have like a group, maybe team member would be a better example here. So for example, we have a team member, and by default team members can delete discussions. But maybe, we have one team member that we don't really trust, or, whatever. Maybe we want to remove that permission from him. So I'll just, create this add this permission to team member role, and I will give our first user the team member permission. So now let's see if well, we do have a small problem, because this package internally uses this has permission via role method, which unfortunately doesn't comply with our newly created methods. So we could override our has role method and just run a for each loop here. and add an array wrap around the role list. So if it is not an array, it will still work. And then, if it has any roles, it will return true, and if not, it will return false. Yes, it will either be an array or a collection. We need database eloquent collection. Validate role. And here we can just role list from value. And now if we fix that, we could do something like this. Okay, let's fix that. So if role is instance of role, then role list from role name. If not, then we'll just return role. And now it should how in the world is this a collection? Yeah, so we should do collect instead of array wrap because it doesn't work for collections. Okay, so now it works. This was painful, but now it works. The problem begins if we remove a permission from this person. So if we, revoke permission to discussion create, you would assume that discussion delete, I'm sorry. You'd assume that, they would no longer have this permission here, but they do. And that is a problem because now you cannot create this, system where you can by default give roles permissions, but then remove them for specific people or specific teams or whatever. So this can be solved pretty easily. What we need to do is we need to create a new migration. And here we'll just add negated permissions. So basically, we'll just create another permission that will be a negated version of the default permission if they and if the user doesn't have the negated version and has the base version, then basically they have the access. So let us go to this migration. Negated permissions. So here, we could just do a for each and then list our user permissions here. Billing manage, billing view. Then we would have permission list, discussion delete, permission list, discussion create as permission. And here we would Okay, so now we need to add this method to negate a permission, and compile suggests adding not. I just prefer adding an exclamation. You do you. It's completely whatever. But yeah, basically we just want to return, a different value, and we need to make sure that we can create it. So, adding a simple prefix, the simplest option. So now, this will work, and now we can just add our down method. Where name is permission negate. We can just delete that. All right, and let's run the migration. And it seems that it went through. So, we can assume that every permission can be negated, but in our example, I didn't create one for Zapier Access, so we can just, add some validation to make sure that that permission can be negated before we do. So we can add a method called can be negated, and this will return a bool. And we can add something like this. We can extract those to like separate methods or something. I think I would rather extract them. So I would create like a public static function called internal permissions, and this would return a builder. And this would basically return all the permissions where in name, and it will return this. And I think we imported the wrong builder. It should be eloquent builder, not query builder. Yeah. So this would return all of our internal permissions. We still can extract this. Oh, let me just remove that. So yeah, all of these can be negated, and now we can just create like a static list that would just include them. So internal permission lists, and this would return, self. We can just copy that. So here we could just remove, here we could just remove this callback with self internal permission list. This would return an array, and now can be negated can simply be changed to checking if it's included in our internal permission list. And if it is, then it can be negated. So that's cool. So now we need to override our has permission to, give permission to, and revoke permission to methods. So we'll no longer be checking if we simply have a permission to something. We'll also check if we don't have permission to the negated version of this permission. So let's start with has permission. Yeah. So we could do something like, if this is admin, then, return true. And if not, then we can do this check here. So if we have the base permission and permission cannot be negated, or it can be negated, and we do not have the permission to the negated version permission, the negated version of this permission, Jesus, I'm sorry, then we do have access to something. So now if we, check the permission, we'll still have it. So we need to change that, and we need to change our revoke permission to method. So here, we can add if permission can be negated, we'll give them permission to negated version. We'll give base permission, base give permission to the negated version, and we'll remove the permission to the base version. And when we are giving the permission, we'll also check if permission can be negated. And if it can be negated, we'll remove the permission to the negated version using base revoke permission to, and we'll give the base permission. So now we can see our first user. They have access to discussion delete. And now if we call our revoke permission to and check their permission again, we'll get false. And now if we, give them the permission to do this again and run the has permission to again, we can see that they have the permission. So that's pretty fantastic. So remember how we added this list here for internal permission released. We can add a helper method to our user called internal permissions, and this is like an optional thing. It's not really important. I use it for my front end sometimes, well, most of the time. Yeah, so we can just call it like, get internal permissions. We can initialize a list, and here we can just iterate through, permission list, internal permission list as permission. And here we can just check if this is has permission to. And we can just call this permission, and then we can return the list. And I usually just include that in my helpers, my user resource that I use for my app. You can also, just add it here. Sorry, not here. You can add it to has roles to get all of the internal permissions for this role. So yeah, to be honest, this should be probably split depending on the model type, and it could be implemented in non-static way. So we can just fix that. So let's just remove the static from here. Let's remove the static from here. To be honest, I don't know why I even created that. We won't be needing that. And here, we could just do a check and We could just accept the model here, and we could like copy this match or whatever. So we could do user internal permission list, and we won't have anything for the team. But just to be sure that we are getting the right data, we can just use it. Oh, sorry, this should return an array, and this should just return that thing here. And here we can just call this internal permission list for model, and here we can accept that model. Model can be negated. We can just pass this. And now let us see if everything is still working. Revoke the permission. They don't have access anymore. If we give them the permission, they do have access. And this could be static. Yeah, so let's just change it. And we should be good. So let me just restart the Tinker. Let's see, user first, get internal permissions. Oh, right, we should include permission name. Permission value, I'm sorry. Permission value as a key. And this will, contain all of the information that we want, and we can just use it in front end to, display pieces of the UI and stuff like that. So this is just like the approach that I like to take. This can definitely be improved. This is, just a start. So I also made like 1,000 mistakes in this video, so I'm sorry for that. But yeah, if you did enjoy it, please do let me know. But before you do, we need to fix one more thing. Okay, last thing. This package publishes a middleware called permission. Permission middleware. It won't work with our new, or will it? Yeah, so it publishes a middleware. We need to create our version of this middleware that uses our new methods. So we'll just make middleware permission middleware, and I will just copy everything that's here, go to our permission middleware, paste it here, adjust the namespace. And here we would just check if the user has permission to permission list from our permission. And thankfully, we are not going to be testing that, so let's just assume that it is working. There is one more migration called middleware called roller permission middleware. But you can just, do it on your own if you want to. Make sure that it is working. I'm just giving you the tools to do this. So yeah, this will be all for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully see you in the next one. Bye.